Today we're going to make a baby frog. So you're going to need your 24 peg loom, your loom hook, a needle with a large eye for sewing up after. You're going to need 4 of these stitch markers. And to make things easier, we're going to also use 4 of these peg markers. These little rubber bands. So take your 24 peg loom and skip the first 2. Mark 2 pegs with that rubber band. Skip 4. Mark the next 2 pegs with the rubber band. Skip 2. Mark 4 pegs with the rubber band. Skip 4. And mark the last 4 pegs with the rubber band. For yarn, we're going to use a size 5 fluffy yarn to make them nice and soft. So the first thing we're going to do is make a slip knot. So take your yarn, hold it with your thumb against your middle finger, wrap it around your index and middle fingers, leave a gap, come up across the top, and push the yarn in through the back. Pull up a loop, take your fingers out, hold on to the tail and what's going to be now the working yarn, and pull that tight. Now adjust it to the anchor peg, that's this side peg here, and pull the working yarn and it should tighten. Now we're going to do the drawstring cast on. So we're going to go behind the first peg, in front of the second peg, behind the third peg, in front of the fourth peg, and so on like that in a zigzag pattern all the way around. When you get back to peg 24, it should be in front. So you're going to go behind peg 1 again, there's nothing on peg 1, and then lay it across a few pegs. And then you're going to knit over on every peg that already has yarn on it. So you see there's a loop here on peg 2 where you put it in front. So we're going to knit that over. There's nothing here on peg 3. There's a loop here on peg 4. And you're going to notice that it's going to be every other peg that you're knitting over. So also do that all the way around. Now for row 1, there's nothing on that first peg still. So you're just going to lay it across the front, yarn over, and you're going to knit over on the second peg. So for this entire project, we're going to be using the U-wrap stitch. So you're going to lay it across the front and half wrap it, and then grab the bottom loop and pull it up over the top of the peg. Half wrap your peg across the front, grab the bottom loop with your hook, pull it up over the top of the peg. That's the U-wrap. So we're going to do this for just row 1. And then for row 2, we're going to start the scallop stitches. Okay, so for row 2, it says to knit 2. These are the first 2 pegs that you skipped when you were marking them with the rubber bands. And then here where you see a rubber band, we're going to make a scallop stitch on these 2 pegs. So you're going to grab 2 of your stitch markers, and you're going to mark the yarn. So you're going to scoop up, grab the yarn with the stitch marker, And then we're going to knit, let's see, it says 13 rows back and forth on just these 2 pegs. So for the first row, you're going to half wrap your peg, grab the stitch marker, and just pop it over. Half wrap your peg, grab the stitch marker, and pop it over. That's row 1. Now we're going to turn around and use our loom hook. Get down. Half wrap the peg, going back in the opposite direction, and knit over. That's row 2. Then we're going to turn around, half wrap the peg. Here's row 3. And we're going to continue until we have 13 rows. You should end up on the right side. Okay, here's 12. And 13. When you're done knitting your 13 rows, scooch these stitches down. Grab your stitch markers and just pop those original loops back up onto the pegs. And then you can take your stitch markers off. And you can see there's 2 loops now on these 2 pegs. We're going to leave that there for now. Next, you're going to knit 4. And see, we have 2 more pegs that are marked with a rubber band. So we're going to mark those again using your stitch markers. And we're going to knit 13 rows back and forth on these 2 pegs. So pop it over with your stitch markers. That's row 1. And we're going to go up to 13 rows just like the last time. Alright, we're going to pop those stitch markers back up. Take them off. And continue the row. And in this case, we're just going to knit to finish the row. So you're going to just keep half wrapping your pegs, knit the bottom loop over the top to finish the row. Okay, once you're done row 2, for row 3 we're going to knit over all of those loops. So you're going to knit 2 just regular, and when you get to the pegs that have 2 loops on them, you're going to take the top one, half wrap your peg, knit that one over, don't move your yarn, knit the bottom one over. So you're going to half wrap your peg, knit over the top loop, or the middle one in this case, and then knit over the bottom loop. Keep knitting. If you're confident and it's not too tight, you can scoop both of these up at once and knit them over as one. But if you're a little nervous about doing that, because you could drop a stitch, you can just do them one at a time. Okay, and then row 3, you're just going to finish knitting, and then row 4 to 8 is just straight knitting. So we'll see you on row 9. Okay, once you get to row 9, we're going to use all 4 of these rubber bands now. So you're going to knit 2, And then on these 2 pegs, we're going to mark them. We're going to do 9 rows. And 9. Okay. Next you're gonna knit 4. And do 9 rows on these 2 pegs. Okay, once you have that one done, you're gonna knit 2. And we're gonna use this big one with 4 pegs. So you're gonna mark all 4 of those pegs. Whoops. And we're gonna knit 11 rows. So it's the same as before. You're just gonna use the stitch markers for row 1 to pop that yarn over. Row 2, you're gonna knit back the other way. Row 3, it's the same as before, it's just a couple more pegs. And we're gonna do 11 rows. Okay, when you have more than 2, you're gonna wanna do the outside edges first. So we're gonna pick up peg 1, we're gonna pick up peg 4, and then you can pop on the middle ones. If you go from one side to the other, it'll probably be too tight for you to get that last peg. Okay, we can take these off now. Next you're going to knit 4. Oops. And for the last 4 pegs, we're going to do 11 rows again. Okay, so once you take your stitch markers off and you've got 2 loops on these 4 pegs, you're done row 9, and you can move on to row 10, which is just to knit over all loops. So we're gonna just do them one at a time, and you're gonna go around for the whole row. When you get to these 4, it's the same thing, just do them one at a time. And then 11, 12, and 13 is just knit. Be careful when you're knitting not to scoop up this rubber band. It won't ruin your work, but you'll have to cut the rubber band to get it out if you knit it in. Also, if you run out of yarn and need to tie on more, or if your yarn breaks, let's say knit till you've got about an inch or 2 left, then make another slip knot, push it in through the back, You're going to adjust it to the very next peg. Pull it nice and tight. Tie these two tails together. Hold on to those two tails. Take the slip knot off of the peg and pull the knot out. And now these tails are going to lay on the inside of your work, so you don't have to worry about weaving them in or anything like that. And then you can just continue knitting. Once you get your 13th row done, we're ready for the cast off. So you're going to take your working yarn, wrap it around your loom once to measure a length. Snip that. You're going to scoot all of these stitches down to about halfway. Now in order to cast off, you're going to half wrap your peg, knit over, just like we've been doing, except now you're going to take that loop and pull it all the way through, so there's nothing on that peg anymore. Knit the next one, pull it through, knit the next one, pull it through, don't grab the rubber band, pull it through, all the way around. Once you get your last one, if you didn't take this yarn off the anchor peg, you can do it now. Doesn't matter. So once it's free of the loom, you're gonna stretch your stitches, and to do that you're just gonna grab these two edges and pull. All the way around. You can see your scallop stitches now. They're on the outside, and where we attached a new yarn, that is on the inside. So you're going to grab the top, which is going to be where your cast on was. You'll find it by recognizing the slip knot, and if you didn't do a slip knot, you just did a regular knot, it'll be the edge with the 2 scallop stitches on it, as opposed to the edge with the 4 scallop stitches on it. That's going to be the top with the 2 of them. You're going to pull that drawstring gently. If it doesn't pull all the way through on the first try, you can pull it as far as it'll go, and then grab hold of these stitches and sort of pull them along. And then you'll be able to pull more. Once you get back up to that tail, you should be able to pull it all the way through. Pull it nice and tight, but you should be able to feel a tiny hole there. You won't be able to see it, but you should be able to feel just a little bit of a hole there. So you're going to take this cast on tail, take your needle, thread it, and you're going to put the needle down through that hole to the inside. Now you're going to flip it inside out, make sure it's still tight, and find the hole with your fingers. Put that tail to the top, and you're going to want to insert your needle on the opposite side of that hole, and come up where that tail is. Pull that tight, and now go to the right of where your tail is, right of that hole, and come up on the left of the hole. Leave a loop. And where your tail is going to be on the left, the loop should be on the right. And you're going to insert your needle through the back of that loop. Whoops. Pull that tight. That's your knot. If you'd like to be extra secure, you can make another knot. Just make another pass. Leave a loop. Go up through the opposite side of that loop. Pull tight again. And since we just did the knot, it's fine that that broke. But be very careful, as this yarn can break when you're pulling on it. Next, we're going to pull the drawstring cast off. That's the other tail. Just a bit to shape it. Grab some stuffing. You won't need much. Maybe half of this. Shove it in there. And the drawstring cast off should be a lot easier than the cast on to pull. We're gonna thread that cast off tail. And the same thing, you should be able to find a tiny hole with your thumb. Insert the needle on underneath. Come up on top. To the sides. Leave a loop, go in through the back, tighten that, and now insert your needle in where that hole would be. Come out anywhere and just pull that tight. You can pull the knot to the inside. Snip that close to your project, but be careful not to cut your project. And now you can see there's a tiny bit of a tail sticking out, and we can just squish and it's gone. Next, we can kind of pull on these scallop stitches just a bit to shape them, give them a little bit more definition. Now you can see his little frog shape. Here's his back legs. Here's his front legs. And here's where you're going to attach the eyes. So we're going to grab, I've got 8mm here. I'm going to grab 2 eyes and 2 backs. And you're just going to put that in the front. And the scallop stitches are actually going to come out as loops. So you can stick the back on through here. Ouch. And then tuck it inside. pull those edges back into place. Here's one eye. And here's the second eye. Now, we're going to embroider on a mouth. So I've got a length of black yarn here. I'm going to thread my needle. Stick it in through the side. And then come out where you want the mouth to be. Let's see. I'm going to give him a big frown. Make a grumpy frog. Leave enough tail that you can tie later. We're going to measure where we want the mouth to go. So I'm going to go about here and hope that's going to be a straight line. And then we're going to come up through the center up here. Scoop this up. Oh. So you're going to go down through and then put your needle back into that same hole, and you're going to come out in the same hole where you started. Make sure it's the exact same hole. Okay, so now when you pull it tight, it should give him a frown. Now he's grumpy. So now what you can do is just simple knot, tie these together. Snip it kind of close. And now you can sort of push this in with your back of your needle. Doesn't appear to be working. There we go. And now you've got a little frog with little feet. Thanks for watching.